Hi, Seattle. I came across an article today that um, hold on, it's in my email. Uh, this is about the head tax, and it's passed now, but I wanted to give you a heads up on what exactly the head tax was. It says canvassers are reportedly spreading false claims about the Seattle head tax. Now, I'll tell you, for a while, I thought it was coming out of people's paychecks. Like, if a business made $20 million a year, each employee would get 46 cents taken out of their annual paycheck. Like, if you made, say, if the company made 20 million, and say you made $30 an hour or $20 an hour or whatever, they would take like 46 cents out of your pay out of each hour that you worked, and you would end up paying the $275 a year. But that's not true. Your paycheck would stay the same. The businesses that made 20 million a year would have to pay the $275 per employee annually, which means every year. Now, I don't believe that a company should have to do that. I think a company should want to do that. I think if a business is making over at least $20 million a year, I think they should want to help the city, give back to the city. Yeah, okay, they can say we're giving back by giving the employees a job. We're giving the citizens a job. Okay, but the citizens are making it a way for you to make that 20 million plus a year. So I think as a generosity, each of those companies should want to pay at least $275 per employee a year to help fix the homeless problem, which we all know that it's not going to help. It's not going to fix the homeless problem. It's going to keep the homeless right where they're at, which is homeless. Now it says canvassers are reportedly spreading false claims about the head tax. During a weekly jaunt or a weekend jaunt to the Seattle Center, I ran into canvassers collecting signatures for a referendum on the head tax. One of the signature gatherers approached me and asked whether I would like to sign the petition. Now, just for reference, I didn't write this, I'm just reading it. But it's very interesting. And I'll leave it up to you to decide if it's interesting enough for you to want to watch. One of the signature gatherers approached me and asked whether I would like to sign the petition, which would seek to place the head tax up for a vote on the November ballot. She wore a badge indicating that she is a paid canvasser and also carried petitions for invitations or for initiatives supporting lower car tab fees and banning soda taxes in Washington State. I asked why I should sign the head tax petition. Well, she said, do you want to pay more taxes? The canvasser responded. Her statement was misleading. The head tax passed unanimously by the city council and signed by Mayor Jenny Durkin, or Durkan. If I pronounced your name wrong, I gravely apologize. Does not collect money from individuals that work for the companies. Rather, the ordinance takes $275 per employee from businesses grossing more than $20 million in annual revenue, and is intended to pay for housing and homelessness services. I am not a business, and I don't make anywhere near $20 million a year. I asked the petitioner whether I would be taxed under the ordinance. She did not give a very clear answer to that question, but stressed that the petition would repeal the tax. At this point, I identified myself as a journalist and she stopped responding to my questions. I am not the only Seattle resident who has received misleading information from a head tax referendum petitioner. Robert McKay, of 32, encountered canvassers Tuesday near the intersection of 3rd Avenue and Pine Street. There's a restaurant that used to be not too far from there called Olympic Grill. He told me a signature gatherer falsely claimed to him that the head tax ordinance would charge $500 per staffer and that the money would be collected from employees rather than the businesses. Ryan Freeman said he spoke with 2 anti-head tax signature gatherers on Tuesday, May 22nd. Freeman said the petitioners claimed that the tax is already in effect. It's not. That 2 Safeways closed due to it, false, and that they've spoken with homelessness service providers who say they haven't received any of the new revenue. Again, the tax does not go into effect until 2019, which means that between now and 2019, it gives businesses an opportunity to get a head start on paying that money. They can put money aside, which they probably won't. Most companies are stupid that way. They probably won't put money aside so they can get a head start. Because if you know ahead of time that you got to pay a bill, wouldn't it behoove you to take money each month aside to go ahead and start paying on that bill when it becomes due? That way it makes it a lot easier for you in the coming year to pay the bill off. To be clear, not every petitioner is giving false information. McKay said that prior to his run-in with canvassers downtown, he encountered signature gatherers at the Folk Life in Seattle Center who seemed to have their facts pretty straight. Another Seattle resident who spoke with the stranger, Daniel Amons, said he objected to the rhetoric of canvassers outside the Central Library. Amons said one of the petitioners questioned how Seattle still has people experiencing homelessness despite the $15 minimum wage and suggests those who don't want to work and suggested those people don't want to work. It was pretty striking to hear someone say that with a straight face. Ammon said the petitioner also claimed, "We heard we don't know what this will be used to pay for. This is technically true, as lawmakers won't allocate the new funds until they write a budget this fall. But a bit misleading because the ordinance makes clear the new revenue is intended to go toward housing and homelessness services," which we all know 90% of that's not going to go toward homelessness services. They're going to figure out a way to use it for other things, just like the federal government has snooped into the Social Security Fund and stolen loads and loads of money to fund other programs that they've not put back in because they assume it'll just recoup itself because people are still paying in Social Security. All the petitioners are working or volunteering on behalf of no tax on jobs, a political committee that needs more than 1,700 verified signatures by June 15th to place a referendum on the November ballot. Several companies are funding the effort, including Amazon, Starbucks, Vulcan, and a trade company representing grocery stores. Businesses have pledged more than $350,000 to the campaign. $350,000 to stop it. They could take that $350,000 and they could pretty much cover the head tax for all their employees per year. They're pledged more than $350,000 to the campaign according to a disclosure report. A spokesperson for No Tax on Jobs did not immediately respond to requests for a comment. I wonder why. McKay and Freeman reported their encounters with canvassers to Working Washington, a labor-backed group that is among the unions and local nonprofits supporting a campaign to dissuade people from signing anti-head tax petitions. The group set up a website called BringHomeSeattle.com, which lists SEIU 775 as its funder. That's a union, by the way, which I say unions are totally screwed. Unions don't give a fuck about the people. Unions will get the people to protest. They'll get the workers to protest, and they'll get the workers frenzied up. But as soon as the workers start losing their jobs because of the protests, or they get fired because of their jobs in the protests, oh, fuck, the unions will just go on to the next batch of union workers. They don't give a fuck. They're still making their money. And you're paying union dues while you're out on strike. So I think unions are pretty fucked up. The ones that love the unions have never really had to use the union. The ones that got them union jobs that are making that union money, they've never had to go on strike and lose their job. Now, my dad worked for the Chrysler car plant in Fenton, Missouri, which is outside of St. Louis. And Lee Iacocca and Chrysler put the Chrysler car plant, they laid off a bunch of people. A lot of union workers, they laid them off. Now, the union made a promise to the union workers that were laid off that they would help them either secure a new job or they'd get their job back. Now, Lee Iacocca told all the people that were laid off, as soon as we start making a profit and revenue, we will bring you guys back to work. It was 9 months later, but Lee Iacocca kept his word. As soon as Chrysler started to make a profit, all the ones that were able to come back to work that had been laid off for 9 months got their jobs back. Plus, I believe that they got a raise from Chrysler. Now, the unions didn't do a flying flipping thing to help my dad. The union took my dad's union money every month. The union dues took that every month. They didn't fucking help my dad do a freaking thing. That's why I hate unions to this day. Now, once you're in a union, if you got a union job that's paying union wages and you've never went on strike or your job is working great for you, yeah, you think unions are just fine because it helped you get that union paid job. But let yourself get in a rut where you get laid off from the job, especially in Seattle. You get laid off on the job, do you really think the union's going to help you? No. Or if you lose your job, you get fired from your job because they closed down areas of the job and you got fired, do you really think that the union is going to do anything but just take your wages so they can keep on getting paid? I'm telling you, I really am. Seattle residents wishing to remove their names from a referendum petition must submit their request in writing to the Seattle Clerk's office before the King County Elections Department begins verifying signatures. The request must be signed exactly the same as contained on the petition. So if you put down John Doe, you got to put down John Doe when you try to take it off. The request must be signed exactly the same as contained in the petition according to the city's Citizen Referendum Guide. A drive in 2014 to place a referendum on the Seattle's $15 minimum wage ordinance was also marred by claims that petitioners provided false information, which means that they kind of cooked the books a little bit to stop the minimum wage hike. And then I'm pissed off, Seattle, about that minimum wage hike. Do I, under normal circumstances, in a perfect world where everything is nice and we live in Mayberry, yeah, $15 an hour would be great. But your cost of living is way up here, Seattle. They gave you that $15 an hour hike back in January. How's that working out for some of you? I heard that you lost your jobs. companies that are small are being forced out because they can't afford to pay the $15 an hour, so they have to close their doors. Now, I think that if you're minimum wage and you're over so many employees, then the wage should go up to $15 an hour. But if you're under, you have like a year and a half to 2 years to come up to speed on the minimum wage hike because you're not making enough to cover the minimum wage hike. You can keep it at a smaller amount. The campaign failed to get enough signatures. More than 300 residents asked to have their signatures removed from the petitions because of misinformation, probably. Seattle Municipal Code explained in detail how petitions should be worded, but does not say anything about the conduct of signature gatherers. They can lie their ass off to your face and get away with it. But does not say, as the Seattle Times noted, when minimum wage supporters raised questions about signature gatherers in 2014, Washington state law prohibits people from interfering with a voter's right to sign or not sign a petition by threats, intimidation, or any other corrupt means or practices. Yeah, so that minimum wage hike that went up, a lot of companies, they closed their doors because they couldn't afford it. Now, what I suggest, and I'm talking to the Seattle Council right now, Kashima Sawant, I believe is her name, city councilwoman. I'm talking to her and a few other Seattle city council and the mayor too. In order to make things better, Seattle needs to lower their cost of living. Now, I believe that the rich should be rewarded for what they make. If you work your ass off to make 200 grand a year, $500,000 a year, $1 million a year, or whatever, I believe you should live the high life if you want to. Go out to $500 steak dinners and things of that nature. But I also believe that there should be people that are helpful to the lower income people, the ones that are making $1,000 a month or less, up to $2,500, which would be about $15 an hour for the average person. I believe that between $1,000 and under and $2,500, there should be places for you guys too. I believe that the city should be for everybody. Just like they make food's cheaper at Aldi. I don't know if you guys have that store up there, but we have it here. Just like they have cheaper foods here, where you can get a bag of potato chips for like $1.29, as opposed to going to like a high-name grocery store and paying like $5 for a bag of Ruffles potato chips. I believe that they should be stuff like that. They should be restaurants. Like, when I lived in Seattle before, you could go to Captain D's, and you could sit down on a Friday, and all you could eat, fish and chips and clam chowder, $5.99 between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I also believe that you should have stuff for the middle class. But I also believe that it should all balance itself out. It should be a little of everything. You shouldn't just be strictly for the rich. You shouldn't be strictly for the middle class. And you shouldn't be strictly for the poor. The poor shouldn't have to feel less than a second class citizen in Seattle. The poor should feel like a first class resident, just like the rich. And of course, the rich have worked their asses off to get to where they're at. The ones that have not hurt anybody. Of course, as you're moving up in the world, you're probably going to rub elbows the wrong way. That's a fact of life. But I don't think you should be penalized for being rich. But I don't think you should penalize the poor for being poor either. Anyway, that's my take on it. This has been All Things Considered, because I consider all things.